We learn how to maximize the virtual space. It shouldn't replace the actual human connection.
What would it look like if this was easy?
Be in relationship with their money. Respect money as a really important player.
Power comes from feeling that your mission is important. It doesn't matter if you're aggressive.
I think we're in a culture of just be grateful. Okay, and am I a monster? Can I be grateful and still want more? And I think you can.
Mistakes are like treasures to prepare you for something else.
Welcome to Powered by AWE, the podcast where women building businesses talk honestly about the decisions, trade-offs, and consequences that actually shape growth. I'm Michelle Toner, and today we're kicking off episode 1, Powered by Community. My guest today left a senior government career to build a leadership consulting firm from scratch in Alberta in male-dominated industries on her own terms. She's a PhD, a published author, a podcaster, and she's built programs for women leaders that's now in its 8th cohort. Dr. Johanna Pagonis, welcome.
Hi.
So excited to have you here today.
Thank you.
I feel like this conversation could go for many hours.
I think so.
Yes. So excited for you to be here. You're clearly not busy at all doing,
Yes,
you know,
right.
with your PhD in businesses and lots of work. Published a book. And now you have your consulting firm. But before all of that, what was the version of Johanna that was existing in the universe before you decided, no, I'm gonna do this on my own and start my own business?
Yeah, kind of like what led me to want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. My dad was an entrepreneur. He had an accounting firm now he just sold it over 40 years. My mom was actually the first entrepreneur. They're from Greece, and she owned a hair salon in Greece.
Oh, lovely.
But even though I grew up with that, I never thought of actually being an entrepreneur. I just thought you go to school, you're going to get a degree, and you're going to get a job somewhere. I'm originally from Montreal. And I thought I was going to be a marriage family therapist, either work in a clinic, maybe start my own practice, not sure, but that's really what I wanted to do. I took a hard pivot into corporate training and development, and then I was just really happy there. And so like the thoughts of maybe doing something on my own never really solidified into anything. But then I ended up moving from Calgary. So I left Montreal, went to Calgary, and then went over to Edmonton, which is like the government mecca.
Of course.
Got a job there. And when I started to work there, I started to attend a lot of conferences because I was in training and development, so I'd go to I had more opportunity to go to conferences where I worked before. That wasn't really presented as an option, but in government it was like, we want to invest in you, we want you to go and get training, we want you to see what else is out there in terms of like what's happening in the training and development space. And so I got to meet a lot of PhDs, a lot of keynote speakers, a lot of business owners, and when I learned more about what they were doing, it intrigued me. I'm like, I think I want to do that. I kind of saw myself doing keynotes, I saw myself maybe having a consulting business, but it was just like a little kernel of an idea. But that seed was planted. And anyways, I stayed with government for 10 years. I ended up leaving where I was with Justice and Solgen, which I love very much. But I had a position that I just couldn't progress more into another senior leadership position. And there was an opportunity in education. And I went there for about 2 years. And when I got there, I experienced a workplace culture that it was very challenging. It's very political in nature. It's high demand, high pressure. And I started to experience a lot of things in terms of like, is this really what I want to be?
Right.
So the idea of having my own business started to kind of come back up again. I'm like, I'm not really happy here. I don't feel like I'm fulfilling my purpose in terms of what I really want to do. The direction that they're taking me is off the path of what I thought I would be doing while I was here. And so I was actually had my name in another a promotion process. And I woke up at 3 a.m. with like a panic attack, literally a panic attack. And I'm like, what am I doing? I don't think this is what I want to do anymore. So the next day I took my name out of the competition. I said, I don't want to do this anymore. And then I started working with my boss. So then somebody else got hired in the position that I may have been hired to do. Anyway, so I was like, you know what? I'm going to help her succeed. I will help onboard this new person and also ask her if she can help me exit. So we devised an exit strategy and then left the organization, left the government to start my own business. But, for the longest time, I never even thought about it until I was put into a position where I was like, I don't think this is really what I want to do. Like what my values and what I thought my purpose wasn't being fulfilled. And so to have that hard talk with myself to be like, this is the time. You've been thinking about it. What are you waiting for? Oh, that was an interesting time in my life.
Was there other signs that maybe you weren't where you wanted to be? Was there signs that you ignored before the panic attack that, smacked you across the face?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there were pretty obvious signs when When I was told, I was in a meeting and I was asking questions and I was curious to know about the level of risk that if this one direction that we took, would pose to the organization and some of the work that we were doing. And then a couple of days later, my boss came to see me and she's like, so I've been told that I need to accompany you to all the future meetings you go to.
Oh.
Because the questions that you asked, the things that you said, they felt like they didn't like that line of questioning, I guess they thought I was being adversarial perhaps or confrontational, and I was just trying to seek answers and be curious and try to minimize the risk that I thought the direction we were going in posed. I felt like that was kind of like, I guess, the hair that broke the camel's back, because there were like little signs like that happening over time. When that happened, I'm like, I have been handcuffed. I feel like I've been completely disempowered. So, I mean, was that a little sign? It was kind of like a big one, but still I ignored it, right? I was like, just be a good soldier and just do what you're told. And then, I don't know if you've ever read the book called The Body Keeps the Score. It's like when you're not listening to yourself, you're not listening to like that inner voice, your body will tell you, stop, like what you're doing, it's not working. And I think that's what led to the panic attack. So the panic attack was very much like you need to really start to look inward and have a serious self-awareness conversation around like, is this, because if you stay on this path, like, is this going to be something that you can actually look in the mirror every day and feel proud about yourself, like in terms of what you're doing.
So you had they had the panic attack. What was your timeline from panic attack to exit to, I'm going to start this company?
So that was in January, and then October is when I started the company.
Wow.
Was when I took about a month to really just talk it through to myself, right? And say like, is this really what I want to do? And then I tried to repress that feeling and that thought process. And, and then I was like, you can't, like, this isn't like, there was just more data, more evidence.
Your body was like, no, you won't.
No, that's right. Yeah. And so I think around the summertime, I was like, I need to start to examine this a little bit more. So over the summer, I started to look at it, I started to play with the idea. What would I do? What kind of business would I have? And then around September, AWE, that's why I discovered Alberta Women Entrepreneurs.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And they had a 3-day course to help you build a business plan, to help you kind of formulate the idea in terms of like, if you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to start a business, where do you start? What do you do? Like, I had no clue. Like, if I'm going to do this, I think I need some support. And so I took that 3-day course. It was in the evening, so after work I'd go over there and I would do it. And I was like, I think I can do this. I think what I built with them is pretty strong and is a good foundation of something that I can do. And I think that was around September. And then at that point, my new boss had started. I was working with her. I was trying to onboard her because I was in the acting position before she came in. So I stepped down, she came in. I tried passed the baton. And then around, I think it was near the end of September, October, I sat down. I was like, I think I really want to do this. Would you support me in maybe transitioning to part-time? And then maybe March 31st, 2020 is when I can officially pull the plug and start my business.
Oh, that's perfect timing.
So this is September, October. She's like, okay, I'll support you. So I worked from October to December full-time as I was just building a website and doing those things and trying to put the business plan into action that I helped, that AWE helped me create. And then January came, and then it's when I started part-time. And I couldn't do it. It was too hard because they kept, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday are your working days. Tuesday, Thursdays are your day off. But they kept asking me to come in and can you do this and can you do that? And then I started working full-time hours, getting paid part-time pay. And I was like,
not a good strategy.
No, this wasn't working. I was canceling meetings with potential new clients within my own business so I could do work for the government. I'm like, and I was letting my team down because I wasn't there as they needed me to be. And I was just failing at two things, I felt like. And I'm like, what's holding you back? Are you so afraid that you can't? You work so hard for the government. You work so hard for other people. If you work that hard for yourself, what could you accomplish? And I'm like, you just need to do it. So I went to her and I said, listen, end of January, like February 7th, I go, February 6th is my last day. That's it. I'm done. And she's like, that's fine. She was very supportive of that. February 7th was my first day full-time as a business owner. And you know what? I had this conversation with someone the other day. I said, what if I stuck to the March 31st timeline and the pandemic hit? What if I had gotten cold feet and said, you know what? Maybe this isn't a good idea. Maybe I'll push it back a year, right? But because I hadn't waited until the end of March, I really had no choice. I had quit. So when the pandemic came around, it was kind of too late.
You get thrown in the pool.
Yeah.
No life jacket.
And I'm not the type of person to go back and be like, can you hire me back again? Like that ship had sailed. Like they had like got rid of my position. It didn't exist anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was like, there's no going back. But I don't regret it. I'm happy that I did it.
Did you have that moment, growing up in a family, like you said, you thought the path was school, work, job, career. But what about your pension? What about your benefits?
Yeah. Yes. Oh my God.
But you have a title. Why would you ever leave a senior job in the government?
Yeah.
Did you have that conversation either with yourself or with other people?
I think I was having that conversation with myself years leading up to it. And so when I finally decided to do it, I was stubborn. I'm like, no, I'm doing this, and I know I will succeed. So I had that talk with myself like earlier in that year and years prior. So by the time that I decided to do it, it was done. But what was interesting was that people were coming in my office, and they're like, this is even before they knew I was starting my business, people would come in my office and they'd say, oh my God, they weren't happy. Like there was lots of changes going on in government at the time, and they were not happy. But they would say to me, well, at least I have a job because it's hard out there. Imagine I didn't have this job, and they didn't know that I was leaving. And then when they found out, imagine that. Eh? And then when they found out I was leaving, they're like, what about your pension? My girlfriend was saying, like, what about your pension? People I thought would be very supportive were like, when they found out that I was doing the part-time thing and then eventually going to start my business, they were like, oh, that's smart, because when your business fails, you'll have a job that you can lean back on. Like no one really was supportive. My family, they weren't happy. I think my dad had aspirations I'd become a deputy minister. He was like, you have such an amazing career. Like, what are you doing? You're crazy. And this is a man who had his own business for 40 years, right? But he was not pleased with the decision, and he thought, he was concerned that I would fail. And if I failed, what would happen? So I had made I'd made that decision at that point. Like that inner fixed mindset, imposter syndrome voice was like, I just shut her up. But it was hard because everyone else was still having that conversation with me in terms of like, it's not going to work out.
Yeah. Who do you think you are?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Who do you think you are to just leave this? This is an opportunity that 1 million people would kill for, and you're going to walk away from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, and as sure as you can be in yourself, there is still all of that outside noise that I think you need to learn to get to a point to ignore.
Yes.
You're like, nope, I'm good.
Yes.
I'm okay to keep going with that. You said timeline is very interesting. Like you say, what would have happened had you waited until March 31st? And I can imagine there was so much uncertainty at that time. What was it like to have that as a launch window? That time of so much uncertainty, day to day, our whole lives were changing.
Yeah.
What did that look like for your business?
Yeah. Oh, it was so unsettling. So, starting a business, number one, you feel like I went from having a team to having no one. So I was a sole proprietor first, and it was just me. And from having a team and strategic thinking partners and people to bounce ideas off of, it was all gone, and it was just me. And so I'm putting things out in the universe, and I'm hearing nothing. I'm hearing nothing for a couple of reasons. One, everyone's in crisis mode, and no one is interested in leadership development, organizational consulting, where people are like, how are we going to keep the lights on?
Right.
What does this mean? How is everyone going to transition to virtual workspace? Like everyone was just in a panic mode. And so I was feeling very isolated. I'm putting things out into the world to see what I can do to support. What's my best way to position my value add? Am I functioning from a mindset of like, let's make money to like, let's just be supportive and maybe not make money to like gain some credibility and value? Like it was, and I'm putting things out there. I'm posting. I started the podcast at that time.
Oh, during the pandemic?
Yeah, for a few reasons. One was to like get connected to a network, because I was like, I am so isolated. Let me meet with other thought leaders in this space, like in leadership development, organizational development, and things like that. And I was like, just to connect with people and learn from them as well. And maybe I can also position myself more as a thought leader too through the podcast. So the podcast was about trying to create a sense of community for me, but also to be able to give back to the world and be like, don't forget about learning and development. Don't forget about, organizational culture. During this time, these things matter the most. So I was hoping the podcast would kind of help people understand the value of that.
Right.
So when people were ready to acquire my services, they would see me as the go-to. But it was tough because I was like, am I doing the right thing? Does anybody, think that what I'm putting out there is of value? Because no one gives you feedback. I wasn't getting emails. Good job, Johanna. Thank you.
course.
You're changing my life. There was like none of that. It was crickets.
You were always waiting for them and it didn't
I guess
come.
I was hoping, you know. Yeah, I was like, and there was like nothing. It was crickets. Oh, it sucked. Like, you know what? It was tough. But during that time, I was like, well, I got time on my hands now because I'm not busy. There were a couple, like when I started, right before the pandemic, people reached out to me and I had proposals in the pipeline, if you will, like in the sales pipe, you know, and I was confident I was going to get them and they were going to be big 1-year contracts and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna get busy right away. And I've heard stories of other entrepreneurs who started and got contracts like that, usually from people within their network, right?
Of course.
But when the pandemic hit, those clients were no longer interested. You know, I got ghosted bad, I would say, you know, and I understand why. So I had time on my hands. So I really built the business. I really figured out what kind of services I wanted to provide and how would those services be positioned and articulated. I built an online course academy, had an online course catalog of like various courses that I could sell and scale up easily. So this is what I did during my free time during the pandemic and tried to get some clients here and there a little bit as well. So yeah.
And you talked about community multiple
Yeah.
times and building a community. And I think more than anything, AWE wants to build that community of entrepreneurs because there's not necessarily a natural pathway. Like you say, people are not sending you emails saying, great job, let's connect and really support one another. So trying to facilitate that. Did you find community in your business planning? Friends, have you been able to connect with other women entrepreneurs through the programs that you've taken at AWE? Tell me about community and then also how you've helped to develop your own community as well.
So like that first year, I didn't feel like I had a community. I had to find it and create it myself. And that was an important lesson that I learned, that if you kind of wait for things to come to you, they're not going to come to you. Like one of the things I learned about leadership was like, as a strong, positive, empowering leader, you don't wait for people to come to you, you go to them.
Right.
And I think I kind of forgot about that when I launched the business, and then I was quickly reminded how important that was. And so the way that I created community was I started to seek out opportunities where I could connect with other people who were kind of on a similar journey or have gone through it and I could learn from. And ATB was my bank, and ATB had a program called Build Her Business, and it was like a Boost R crowdsourcing initiative where you could take existing products and services or new ideas, and through a crowdsourcing platform you could promote your business. So they help you create your campaign. They give you access to women who have been through it that could be mentors and coaches that you can reach out to anytime that you had questions. And then in January you had 30 days to launch, and you had a financial target.
Oh, wow.
So building up to the January 1st, 2021 launch date, when you launch your online campaign, there was lots of doubt. And there were a lot of women that I could reach out to through the community that were like, I would say like, oh my God, like, okay, I launched my campaign. No one's responding. No one's sending me emails. Like they support me. Like, you need to start sending emails. You need to like, I reached out to, I was in Sherwood Park, you know, Sherwood Park News. And like, they did a feature on me. Like I was just like, putting myself completely out there, and I wasn't hearing anything back. And so I would reach out to those mentors, and they're like, you have value, keep going forward. You will hear from people. Don't have the self-doubt that prevents you to the point where you don't go forward. But like literally there was a time where I was just crying. I'll never forget. I'm like, no, it's emailing me back. I'm such a failure. I was like, oh, it sucks. Why am I doing this? Like, when do I give up? When do I find a job? I did not want to have to go back to work and work for someone else. And then all of a sudden, everyone started emailing me. And I was like, I had forgotten about that other community that I had, the network that I had. I completely forgot about them. And that network were colleagues, friends, family, people that I had met. I emailed everyone. And I was really surprised at the people that reached out to me and said, we want to work with you, you know? And so that was an eye-opener. But over the years since then, community has been interesting because sometimes I'm like, I put myself out there, and other times when I get really busy, I retreat and I just focus on my clients, my team, and the work, and then I lose connection with my community and my network. And it's a very interesting thing that I learned. I heard an entrepreneur talk about this. She said she was at the height of her career and she was doing amazing things and she had so many clients, and then she just went into like cruise control.
Right.
Passive mode. And then all of a sudden she started losing her clients and business started to drop. And then when she looked at what the pattern was that led her to there, she's like, when I stopped putting myself out there, when I stopped giving back, when I stopped reaching out and building those relationships, it actually had a negative correlation to my business and the success of my business. And so over time, I'm like, you can't retreat. You can't not reach out to people. You can give back to other people who are in a position that you were in, and you still have lots to learn.
Right.
So where I'm at a point now is like I'm like networking. I'm going to events. I'm like going to AWE's event tonight. Anytime there's an opportunity to be with other people, I'm doing that. And now I'm bringing my chief operating officer with me. And what I'm noticing about her is she focuses. She's a hard worker. And she's like, I'm too busy. And I'm like, no. You need to sometimes, we will figure out how you can do the work, but you need to come to these events. You need to meet these people. You need to meet new people. You need to meet people who are very influential, who are really positive, empowering, and it will fill your soul. So when you go back to work, you're going to be completely re-energized, and you're going to see the work through new eyes and a new kind of sense of motivation. And that's what community has done. But it's easy for me sometimes to just pivot and want to focus, put the blinders on.
Right.
And just focus on the work in front of you. And I'm like, that there has to be a balance. Like I can't be socializing and networking all the time, but I can't always be in the office just doing all my work. There has to be a balance.
Well, I think there's so many nuggets in what you just said, but I think the first one is the consistent planting of seed. And you can't just blow into a networking event and blow out and not see anybody and not anyone hear from you for the next couple of months. And it's like, what are those consistent behaviors of connecting with other people so that you are continuing to learn, even learning about what else is going on in the community, what other opportunities there are, and having those conversations and being able to take that information inside. And it is so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day of whatever it is you're doing for work. But I think it takes one event where one person introduces you to somebody else, and then that turns into something great to remind you of the power of your community and the power of networking. We were at an event this past weekend, and we were there to be a speaker, but we heard a speaker, and then all of a sudden, oh my God, this girl is great. And she was saying, I'm asking for more speaking opportunities. I want to do this more. And then we were able to connect, and then she's connected to other people we know. And then the conversation just, it comes back where you're like, wait, actually, I know exactly the right person for you. And while it was a quick conversation, at a networking event, then you're tapping into that whole other opportunity. In innovation, there's this concept of trees and idea trees. If you need to unlock that one door to get to that whole other section of potential ideas. I think the networking is the unlocking of the doors to this whole other series of conversations that you didn't even know that you should have, you could have, that other people are having, but it does take a little bit of energy. So what's the return? What's the return on your investment? Like you say, you can't go to every single networking event, but how do you strategically show up at those events?
Which ones?
With an agenda.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's interesting because through the Women Up program that we do, that we have one of the workshops out of the series that we offer is it's called My Success Circle. It's a different way to network. Forbes came out with an article that said 9 types of people to have in your success circle.
Okay.
And so we present networking versus success circle. And they're like, we like the success circle because that sounds like it's more compassionate, more empathetic, more about giving back. It's more of like a personal journey of growth and opportunity, whereas networking is very strategic and it's very business and professional oriented. And they tend to want to lean towards the success circle and not so much towards the networking, because the whole idea of it being very strategic is uncomfortable. Right. And I'm like, why? How come? Not that they always say too in therapy, you shouldn't say the word why, because it's puts people on the defense. I'm like, how come? What is wrong with saying that when I decide to network, I'm going to do it in a strategic way? Sometimes I go to networking activities or events and I'll meet a woman and she's like, well, I'm not here for business. I'm just here to make relationships. Can't you do both? Can't you, promote your business, right? And build relationships. Why does networking in a strategic way and building relationships have to be mutually exclusive events, items, things? They can live cohesively very well together.
Absolutely.
And so when I'm thinking about what events to go to, there's a couple of factors. Like, one, am I even available? Like, can I, I'm not going to sacrifice a client, meeting or workshop that we're facilitating. Like, am I available to go to this? And if I am, then what would I try to think, like, what could I give back and what could I get back from this event? If it's always just me giving over, like, there are moments where I specifically go to an event because the idea is to give. But there are times where it's also important to receive.
Of course.
Like Brene Brown talked about her daughter in the marble jar.
Yep.
And now, right? Like, you have a glass jar with marbles, and sometimes you're going to give your marbles to someone who needs. Every marble, I guess, represents a dose of energy, right? Or inspiration or support. So you want to sometimes give your marbles, but you can't give them all away, because then you have like an empty jar, and that's basically you're drained, right? So sometimes you have to also go to events where you feel like you're going to learn. You'll meet someone who can also give you an opportunity, right? And so I look at those in terms of like, what could I give, but what could I get back? Who's going to be there? And sometimes I'm not even sure, because I've never done it before. This is a new event I've never been to. But I'm just gonna go and see what happens, right? I have availability. Sounds like it's fun that's also has to have an element of fun too in the description, and it has to be educational in some way, right?
Right.
And sometimes it's just the fun factor. And one time I did one of those things. The Edmonton Chamber of Commerce did this. Like, it was the first time they did it. It was last year. It was called, I think, Chamber After Work or something like that. And it was like after work event, and we went and I met 3 amazing women, and from that many opportunities came. Right. Some of them were me volunteering, which was great. Others that they gave me opportunities, but now I consider them friends. Right. Beautiful friends that I have now. And that was just pure curiosity. I'm kind of curious to see what this is about, and it just seemed like a lot of fun. And so, is it fun? Is it educational? What do you think you may get in return, and what do you think you can give back also, are kind of like the criteria that I look for.
Right. I think it's such a valid point that in a community, there are people that have different things to offer, and that also there's people that have different needs. So when you go to a networking event, everybody there is not necessarily seeking an opportunity for a sales pitch. Sometimes they are seeking to learn. Yeah. And that theme of curiosity and seeing what else is out there is we've been hearing it over and over with entrepreneurs about being curious and seeing what's out there. But I love the giving as much as you are getting. And I think oftentimes that giving is so impactful, and to be able to give something to another entrepreneur that propels them forward, what a gift to them, and how wonderful for you to be able to feel like maybe you played a role in somebody else's success.
Yeah, that's really inspiring. When you feel like you can do that and you've seen that happen,
you're like, oh, maybe I do know something.
Yes, yeah, maybe played a little part in that, right? Yeah, and people will come and share that with you. It's really inspiring to keep going.
Right.
To keep doing what you're doing.
Exactly. And I think sometimes it happens at times when either you or the person didn't even know they needed it, or that you even provided it, which is even more of the magic of what happens when women come together in community to support one another. You talked a lot about isolate and then building the community. Let's talk about your community that you've built and your program.
Yeah, I was thinking about that on the way here. I'm like, it's interesting, because I've never actually thought about it in that way. Like, who is in my community? And if I was asked that, what would I say? So, like, that's the question, right? Like, who is in my community? What is my community? Well, okay, my husband, the number one person in my community. He was supportive of me when I wanted to start the business. He really was, and still is. And now we work together. So he's retired and he works with me in the business, and he is so supportive. Like, anytime I have self-doubt and my little imposter monster wants to come and gobble me up, like, he's the one who kind of checks it for me, and reinforces why I'm doing what I'm doing. So he's a big part of my community. The other part from extension from that would be my team. And I'm happy that I'm in a position where I get to choose who I hire and really invest in their development. And the people I've chosen are wonderful human beings, and I love working with them every day. So they're definitely part of my community, and they inspire me and fill me with lots of energy. And then from there would be other women entrepreneurs that I'm meeting now. And how I've created that was through AWE. So I did the Bold Leadership Program.
Yeah.
And then
Strategic Edge.
Thank you. I did both of those, and I got to meet some amazing women there. One that I had lunch with in Calgary, another one who lives in Sherwood Park too. And I'm hoping I need to reach out to her, see if she's coming tonight. So just like that. So other women entrepreneurs who I've met from networking events too, who've given me access to other opportunities, volunteering on a board, volunteering on a committee. I've gotten community from them as well, because we're all there for a common purpose.
Right.
We all believe in giving back and want to support ourselves and other women. So I've made some really good friendships from there. Like in the last year, so last year was like, I am going to throw myself out of my comfort zone and live in a zone of discomfort on a regular basis for one full year and see what happens. And that's when I sat on a board. That's when I decided to join a committee and volunteer there. I taught at the U of A. I was like, oh my God, doing all of these things that were outside of my comfort zone. But through those opportunities, I gained more community. I gained more access to other people who inspired me and were supportive. And I felt like I could do the same for them. And so I would say last year was when my community got really beefed up.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And before that, I think I definitely had, but it was, I still felt quite isolated. It was just me and my team and my husband and my clients who I love. My clients are part of my community.
Yes. So you taught at the U of A, you're interacting with different women. Have you seen a pattern, or is there anything that you see that are holding women back in entrepreneurship that has nothing to do with skills or strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think all the women who want to become entrepreneurs are very, very skilled. And if anything is holding them back, I think it's their mindset. I've seen some really successful women. Oh, and I love hearing about their stories. But I've also seen some women who are really talented and then just tried it and then gave up and ended up like going back to and working for another company, just getting a full-time job. I mean, from what I've observed, and I'm always asking that question, I ask that question from other people, because for a while I had a bit of survival guilt.
Oh,
why am I still in business? But some of my friends and other colleagues over time have started and did not continue on that path. You know, why did they struggle? Where like I struggle sometimes, absolutely, I still do, but I'm still here, right? That was the difference. So I had survival guilt, like am I just being lucky? Am I lucky?
Right.
You know, like I don't merit this. So I had that inner dialogue and I realized, no, you do merit this. And so one of the things that I realized that maybe differentiates me from people who kind of, I don't know how else to put it, but decided to go on a different path, decided not to pursue the entrepreneurial path. One of the things that many of them have shared with me is like, it is very uncomfortable to go out and do marketing and sales. It's really uncomfortable to find new clients, to reach out.
Putting yourself out there?
Yes, yeah. Right. Calling people, setting up meetings, talking to people about what you do, what you have to offer, the cold calls, the everything. Like it's really uncomfortable. And every woman that I speak to is like, you know, when I kind of try to plant the seed or see if they're open to working with me, they're like, I'll do the work, but I can't do sales. I can't do marketing. I can't reach out to people, and I can't do that. I can't do that. No. And I was like, and I'm like, okay, fair enough. But I'm like, you know what? I felt that way too. I felt like marketing and sales was like sleazy. And I'm like, it's just relationship building.
Absolutely.
That's what it is. People need what you have to offer. Yeah. They may not know it yet because you haven't been able to articulate what you have to offer, you know, but they need what you have to offer because you know what? They're getting it from other people that are not offering a service as good as the one that you could offer.
And if they say no, it's not no,
you suck.
I hate you, go away.
Yeah.
Maybe it's no, not right now.
Yeah.
No, I don't have the funds.
Yes.
I think it's wonderful. Please follow up with me. People are very, very scared of hearing the word
no. Yeah.
because they think it's a reflection of them.
Yes,
and
they're
it's
flawed in some
really
way.
more a reflection of the circumstances of the person who's providing the answer.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. And so like, I heard someone say her goal for 1 year, I can't remember, for a certain amount of time was to get 100 no's.
Yes.
And through that, she got obviously a lot more yeses.
It's a very common sales technique. I talk about, I used to back in the day be part of a multi-level marketing organization and lots of sales training in that. And weekly, it was like collect your 10 no's because then you will get your yes in there. And so it was part of the process and it really removed the fear and the negativity. It was like, no, I'm not interested. Oh, there's one. So I only have 9 more to go. And then somebody is going to say yes. And oftentimes you would get your yes far before
Right.
you ever got to the 10 no's.
That's right.
But it's just repositioning that in your mind frame. I worked a lot in sponsorship too, and people are like, I don't know how you ask people for money. Like, well, there's a benefit there.
Yeah.
I'm not just selling you a tchotchke little thing
Yes.
that no one likes.
Yes.
Like, I really believe that you need what I have to offer, or it can benefit you in some way. So it's that positioning and that reframing. But I think in general, it's like the sleazy salesperson mentality really weighs people down, and they just want to avoid it. Avoid that, avoid no's, avoid the whole thing. But hope's not a strategy.
Hope is not a strategy.
It's not gonna come in. We're not just gonna all of a sudden your mailbox is not gonna be full of compliments and life-changing moments. You just changed my life. It
Right?
just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So you have to work for it.
Yes. And you'll be surprised at actually how many people will take your call. So that's another thing I'm doing this year. Is just like, we're going to reach out to all of our clients. We're going to set up meetings. We're going to at least ask to set up meetings. You know, we're going to listen to how they're doing and where they're at. And then we're going to find an opportunity to share with them with what we're doing and the new things we're working on, and see if there's some synergy there and we can work together. But we're going to keep reconnecting with the people that have been our clients, potential new clients, and we're just going to send out emails. We're going to meet with them, and you'll be surprised at how many people will respond and say yes. Yeah.
I think we underestimate how little other people care about what's going on in our lives.
That's right.
And people are busy. And so, I've had an experience where I was transitioning from the end of one job to the next. And I thought, oh, here comes the offers. I'm just going to be so busy and so inundated. Cricket. And so then I found a job and, was happy in that role. And people said, oh, I thought you just went back to work at the other place. Or, oh, I didn't know that you were looking for a job. And I thought to myself, of course, like, why would they know? They don't know the inner workings of my financial situation or my employment.
Right.
And so when you share those things and you ask for what you want and you say, I'm looking for more work. I'd love to do work on this or in this organization or that organization. There's always someone who's willing to say, oh, I know somebody there. As vast as the world is, such a small place.
Yes.
And so it's like, oh, do you have a contact in so-and-so? Actually, I do. Yeah.
Yes.
Happy to introduce you.
Yes.
So just having those conversations and putting it out there and to see what is it that makes the difference for the conversation.
When I started the business, I thought people would just naturally come to me and ask me that. What do you need from me? Who do you want me to connect you with? What do you want me to do for you to help you succeed? Yeah, that didn't happen.
You're like,
I had to do it.
Oh, I have to do this myself.
I had to do it myself.
And likely not for ill intent, just busy trying to figure out what they were doing in their own lives day to day.
Well, exactly. When you ask them, they will help. But you can't assume they will reach out proactively and ask you, what do you need?
Right.
Yeah,
I'm going to make it my mission to have her business succeed.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Let's talk about your book.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, being a leader, other people want to follow.
Yes.
I feel like I want to follow you.
Oh, thank you.
Tell me about your book and what drove you to
write it. Yeah. So it's based on my PhD dissertation.
Oh.
And so when I did my PhD, I wanted to better understand. So as I was a manager and I was moving up, I didn't necessarily get more confident. Every time I entered into a new leadership position, there was still a lot of uncertainty and there wasn't a lot of support. And I was like, I can't be the only one who's experiencing this, kind of like drinking from a fire hose experience. And so I wanted to make that the focus of my work because I was in training and development, so a lot of formal training in a classroom. But I know that everyday work, the actual workplace, the experiential part of learning needs to be captured a bit more, needs to be studied and researched a bit more, because I think that's really where managers learn how to become great leaders.
Of course.
And so that was the focus of my PhD. And after I wrote it, I was like, I remember after I did my defense and I passed, and they're like, what are you going to do now? And I'm like, I think I want to turn this into a book. And they're like, you should. This has a lot. I'm a practitioner. I don't consider myself an academic or a scholar, though I can say that, but I'm a practitioner. I did the dissertation, I did the research because I wanted to improve the lives of actual managers and make them empowering leaders. And so I thought I really wanted to turn it into a book because I thought if I could take a boring dissertation and make it a bit more of an enjoyable read. That's a quick read with some how-tos and quick steps, like what I can do for myself, but what I can do for other leaders. If I am like the CEO of an organization, I want to, build that capacity within my leaders. What do I do? Where do I start? That also focuses on experiential learning. What can I do? Like, that's why I wrote the book, was for that, like a roadmap of how to do that. And the title really comes from, like, I always thought about, like, we don't get to choose who our supervisors are.
Right.
And so I ask supervisors or managers or leaders, I say, like, if let's say your team was like ushered into, just think about like when you go to a police station and the old school days, the lineup. So imagine you go in and you have like 5 leaders to choose from. One is your actual formal leader, and the others are other empowering, inspirational leaders that have great reputations in the company you work for. Who would you choose? Like, and I asked them, like, would your employee, like, you're standing next to Tom and you're standing next to Sally, and then there's you, and then your team comes in, they get to choose. Would they choose you? And why or why not? It's and every time I ask that question, they're like, I hope they choose me.
The self-doubt creeps in.
They're like, would they choose me? And I'm like, that's like, you need to act every day with intention to know that if they did have a choice, they would always choose you. That's how you need to show up. Not like, oh my God, I report to someone who's like so disempowering, someone who's a micromanager, someone who's absent. Like, we get promoted because technically we're great at what we do. Whoever promotes us figures or thinks we'll figure it out. It's a different skill set. Leading a group of people and managing a group of people are different competencies.
Right.
They're very different. And leading like human beings to really empower them and help them achieve their potential is a different skill set. And I'm so frustrated still that we just think that people are born to do that. They're not. You learn how to do that. You learn through observation, you learn through role models, you learn from people you don't want to be like, but there are things that you could actually learn to really help you and support you in terms of what works and what doesn't, and then giving you tools and processes around that to constantly work on and improving at being an amazing leader.
I think there's no better example of that than education. The really great teachers get promoted to vice principal or principal. Then they're no longer teaching. They're really a CEO of an organization with a very large budget. I don't know. Do you have an education degree as well? I know that's your doctorate,
my first 2 degrees are in like psych and educational psychology, and my last degree is in educational policy studies with adult education focus,
but I'm pretty
not
sure
secondary or
there's no finance course in the education degree.
No,
there's no human
there's no
resources.
No, there's no leadership.
And so you get put in this leadership position because you were really, which is the Peter principle, right? You get promoted to the level of incompetence. So you're a really great salesperson because you can get it done. But that doesn't mean that you're a really great leader of other salespeople. And Gretzky was not a great hockey coach.
I know my husband, because who doesn't love Gretzky? He loves Gretzky, but he says the same thing all the time. He wasn't a good coach.
No. And so just because they say those that can't coach.
Yes.
So Wayne wasn't. Wayne could. He wasn't. Recognized as a great coach. So it's an interesting dynamic, that whole. And I think it's a really great point that you bring up, that you just aren't a leader, that it does take work, much like being a valued part of a community or a network. It takes that ongoing, consistent work to show up and make a contribution.
Correct.
We ask questions, or we have questions from our audience as well. The question you're afraid to ask. This one is, there's so many networking platforms today, or I guess platforms that are marketed as networking, but people still feel lonely. And I think we've talked about this, but how can entrepreneurs build real connections and not just online contacts, not just collect LinkedIn numbers?
I know. I agree. Bob hopefully I pronounced his last name properly, Waldinger. I think that's how it is. He is a Harvard Business School professor. I think he's a psychologist too. And I love this one line that he said. He said that if you're trying to invest in and improve your mental health, build relationships. And I think in the age of AI, I'm going to be giving a keynote in a couple of months about emotional EI in the age of AI, emotional intelligence in the age of artificial intelligence, And I think, I love online experiences. I think it can help us connect with people from all over the world, right? And we have a massive computer in our pockets and our purses every day, is the phone, right? That we're able to connect across the world in ways we never were able to, and there's some value in that. But I think when it comes to being an entrepreneur and the isolation that comes with it, the best way to build your community is to get out there. Like, nothing will replace the human experience. Like, we saw a significant like mental health issue increase over the pandemic. Like my therapist was super busy. I had to book her like 3 months in advance. Like she goes, Joanna, I'm like out of control busy. Like people were really struggling during the pandemic because of that forced isolation. Now we're not in a pandemic. Okay, great. We learned how to maximize the virtual space and all the virtual tools that we can use. It shouldn't replace the actual human connection. So utilize the online platforms. They have a time and there's a place. Maybe it can help you figure out, if I'm going to put myself out there and like actually meet people, what are the best spaces for me to do that in? Maybe the online tools and platforms can help you figure out and hone in on what spaces, physical ones, you actually want to expose yourself to and go into to meet people, knowing that you're going to get some value from that. Because some people are introverted. They don't get energy from being around other people. They get energy from being alone.
Right.
But when you're an entrepreneur, you kind of chose a career where having to be with other people is critical, you know? I don't know if you can be isolated in an office 365 days a year and still have a successful business. I don't know. You know, like you like the user experience is part of your entrepreneurial journey. Well, how do you discover what the user experience is? You have to meet your users.
Right.
And you can't do it necessarily only through a chat or a chat bot. Like people want to know who you are. They want to connect with you. They want to know you're a real human being as an entrepreneur, as the leader of this company, organization, whatever you're launching. They want to feel like you're accessible. Like that's the thing with leadership too. The best leaders are accessible and they're approachable. And you can't do that only through an online platform.
Right.
So I think put yourself out there. So like figure out where you want to go and those spaces, and then experiment.
Use it as a tool, not
The tool. Yeah.
The tool.
Yeah.
I know during the pandemic myself, I would be exhausted at the end of the day. Probably only walk 90 steps, from my kitchen table to the bathroom and back a day. But it's so much energy going out, and then none comes back from the computer screen.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yep.
these types of conversations and conversations in a physical space, really you're able to get that energy back from other people, whether it's through a gratifying conversation or just the exchange of information and ideas. And so I think that's really great advice, is to use that maybe to take your first step, because I think that first step of introducing yourself to somebody is the one that is the hardest. And I don't like it. I hate introducing myself to people. And people, I think, would be very surprised by that, because if you to ask somebody, they would say, oh, you're so outgoing, you know everybody.
Yes.
I'm gonna stand back and wait to find the person who I know in the room and help make that my pathway into meeting somebody new. Maybe not the most strategic way, but my reality. We were talking to another CEO from here in Edmonton, and she worked in the gaming industry.
Oh.
And she said that she described herself as awkward and a nerd.
Okay.
And she said that she approaches networking like a video game.
Okay.
And she makes every networking opportunity like a mission. And so she has her mission, and she goes in and she has to achieve the different things like you would in a video game.
Yes.
And so she has the goals, and she knows what they are, and she's trying to get to the next level and in creating that mission from networking.
That's very smart.
I thought so too.
Yeah, you can go in with an approach like, okay, what questions will I ask? Like, to me, that's the video game. I'm going to go in, I'm going to achieve these 3 things. Maybe them is like meeting one new person, asking another person this question. Like I think you can go into it with some intentionality. I always say goal setting. That's another thing that I tell a lot of women leaders, or as I meet other entrepreneurs, like, what are your goals? Are you clear on what they are, and what's the first step or action you're going to take to achieve it? I think you can approach a networking event in that same way. What's my goal? What outcome do I hope to achieve? And what's 1 or 2 things that I can do to achieve it? And even if you're someone who doesn't get a lot of energy from being around people, but this is something you have to do, then even have a goal around how you're going to re-energize. So I'm going to do this event, I'm going to go out, I'm going to do these things, and then I'm going to come back, and this is what I need to do for introverts, they energize by being alone. So I'm going to go home, I'm going to put on my comfy sweats, I'm going to grab my favorite cup of tea or my delicious glass of wine, and I'm going to watch my favorite show on TV, and I'm going to do that for like 3 hours.
Right.
And I'm going to re-energize. So you can have strategies in terms of how to put yourself out there and how you're going to replenish the energy that you may have lost by doing that thing. I'll be honest, this week was a week of networking. And Monday I woke up feeling very anxious about it. I am more extroverted than introverted, but I even get anxious about that experience. Like I was afraid that I would get drained. So you're right. You have to have kind of a strategy around how you're going to do it, how you're going to get through it, so you can show up and be who you need to be for yourself. And you don't want to drain other people when you're in these spaces. You want to re-energize other people. So figure it out. What's your strategy? If you want to approach like a video game, I think that's great. And then figure out how you're going to replenish. So for me, the weekend's going to be a replenishing time for me.
Yeah, I think that is key as well when we look at a culture of burnout, and especially for women entrepreneurs. Having that plan going into the event and taking it serious to say, okay, I'm going to this event. Again, hope's not a strategy. You can't just hope that you're going to meet somebody new. Figure out how you're going to do it. You're there, you have that plan to re-energize, because it is a lot. It is a lot of output. It's a lot of vulnerability in a lot of cases. And if there's no stop, no pause to celebrate the achievements, I think the other thing too is with setting the goals. When you achieve them, it's a win.
Yes.
It's a win for you. So you're like, hey,
that's re-energizing too.
I sought out to meet 2 new entrepreneurs and I did it. Celebrate the win, acknowledge that you need that replenishment, and then we go again. Maybe not for a week or 2, or maybe the next day, but at least it closes the loop. And you're not just left giving all the time. Yeah. Well, this has been such a great conversation. AWE's community is full of women in every stage of building. So we have people, like yourself, that came and said, I think I want to be an entrepreneur and go through business planning. We have people that are, financing and doing big things and spending lots of money and employing lots of people. What do you want the women who are just starting, who maybe hasn't found their community yet? What do you want them to know, both about the entrepreneurial journey, but also about the value of community?
I mean, hopefully through this whole podcast, this whole episode, they've been able to understand the value of doing that. I mean, first it starts with yourself. And so if you're early on in that career, you've decided to choose this path for a reason. So I think, I don't know if Beyonce actually said this, but it inspired me. I'm not a gambler, but if I had to make a bet, or if I was going to bet on something, I'll always bet on myself. And that really inspired me. So if you've chosen to start this path, like, believe in yourself. And as we said earlier on, like almost like 360 back to like where we started this conversation, it's like you have to try to figure out how you're going to tune out the noise that doesn't help you and doesn't support you. Like, you can hear it, but then you got to compartmentalize that and focus on the path ahead of you. Spend some time in figuring out like what your value add is. What are you offering the world that hasn't been offered yet in your unique way? Maybe you're building off of something that exists, but you're making it better. And appreciate and value that, and seek out, and this is where then community comes in. So once you know what you're doing, it doesn't have to be fully formed, like who we are as a business, like my company and what we offer has developed over the last 7 years. Some of our new ideas that are better formulated now kind of started off like with like a little kernel that we worked through it and we figured it out, and people would ask us questions about this process. We didn't always have the answer. I didn't know. We figured it out. So have faith in yourself that what you're doing is right, but also be open to learning, making mistakes, and not always getting it right, not always saying it right. When people ask you for your elevator pitch and you stumble over it and you feel like you sound like an idiot, don't worry about it. Just keep saying it over and over again. People are drawn to your honesty and your authenticity and your vulnerability, right? So just believe in that and keep working on it. Know it's a work in progress, and appreciate the journey. Don't always be thinking about the destination. The journey sometimes is a lot more powerful and fulfilling than the destination. But don't forget about the community, because it's the community that will fill you up when you're like really drained. Right. It will re-inspire you when you feel like, maybe I chose the wrong path. And they'll tell you to keep going. Your community will, when you feel like you need some help, or you need to, like, I need a client, or I need this contact, your community will help you do that. Be thoughtful in terms of who you want to include in your community. Like, who is part of that success circle? And are they really helping you? Are they just taking all your marbles from your jar? Right. So you want to make sure the people in your community are putting marbles in your jar as much as you can also give them a few marbles. Right. But don't ever underestimate the power of relationships. There's a theory called self-determination theory, and it's a very powerful theory of human motivation. And it basically stipulates that you have to meet 3 basic human psychological needs. You need to have a sense of autonomy, that you can have choice in terms of your own life. So setting a goal is part of, I have a choice, this is my goal, and I'm going to take actions to achieve that. So have that as an entrepreneur. The other one is a sense of competence, which is confidence. If you have a goal and you have the steps that you're taking to achieve it, confidence will come from that. You said it. I have a goal. I'm going to do these 3 things when I'm networking. And once you've achieved them, that's a sense of reward. So don't underestimate the reward that comes from setting a goal and achieving elements or aspects of that goal. But the most important psychological need that it needs to be met, and I think it's like wraps everything else, like everything else is central to that, is relationships. You cannot do any of that. Like your ability to feel confident and feel like autonomous will be limited if you don't have relationships, if you don't have positive, empowering relationships, if you don't have, another way to look at it, as a community. So you need that. You will never survive and succeed without relationships. And relationships could be things like, in your community, a mentor, a sponsor, someone who advocates for you when you're not in the room, who will make referrals. Right? A coach driver, another woman in business who's maybe where you're at, someone who's been there and done that, that could be the mentor. Someone who challenges your thinking. So when the imposter monster like comes up and wants to eat you, that person will be like, give you a different perspective and tell you, no, like this is the path you're on. So be intentional with who you have in your success circle, your community, whatever you want to call it, but don't ever underestimate the value of that. You will not succeed without them.
Felt like you just took me to church on that. That was fantastic. Preach, sister. Something we're doing is asking other entrepreneurs to leave a question for the entrepreneur. So I'm going to give you a question that was left by another entrepreneur.
Okay, and then I have
I'm
to
going to
ask
ask you to leave one.
Okay.
So the question is, how in your business journey have you been able to stay or recognize, how have you been able to celebrate the wins as you go? I know lots of people are like, okay, great, achieve that, on to the next one. But at the end of the day, then, if you're not celebrating during the journey, like you just get to the destination, you're like, whew, that was a lot. How have you been able to keep the fun in entrepreneurship?
Oh, that's a really good question. Oh, yeah. I mean, one is celebrating with my team, doing that in different ways, having intentional one-on-ones with my chief operating officer to just see how she's doing. Actually, that to me is like celebrating a win. Like being able to have the time to just meet with her and tell me, how are you doing? And her telling me what her successes are, what her wins are. We're celebrating that together by listening to her and hearing how she's succeeding and the joys that she's getting, but also the challenges that she's experiencing. To me, is actually hitting the pause button on work and business to take a moment and reflect on what have we done, what has she done, and how are we celebrating that together. So these one-on-ones that I have with my team are really intentional because it actually builds in time for us to take a deep breath, pause, and look at what we've done through their stories and the way they've experienced it. So that I do. We also do an annual retreat every year, and the retreat is meant to be fun. So team building, looking back at the year, and also looking at the year ahead in terms of what's fun. So for me, fun is just taking the time to connect with the members of my team, to celebrate with them, because now it's not just me, it's all of us. So that's how I try to celebrate that and look at like what joy did we get from that, because I love all the clients that we work with. We're really fortunate. We have amazing clients. I say we're fortunate, but we've worked hard to get those clients. The other thing that I do to celebrate fun is whenever we reach a financial milestone, I give myself a gift. Whether it's a trip, whether it's I like shoes and bags, whether it's getting a new bag, a new purse, new boots, whatever, I will treat myself to something. Right. That's how I also celebrate and have fun. Yeah.
So what is one question that you would like to leave for another entrepreneur that you think might spark a thread of wisdom or a story or something that will benefit another entrepreneur?
Yeah. I don't know if this is going to come out right as a question, but one of the things I'm grappling with now is risk taking. I think if we always play it safe, it will limit our growth. So I guess what I want to know is what does risk look like for another woman entrepreneur? Is it taking on debt to launch a new initiative? You know, is it taking a business loan to actually explore like a new online platform or SaaS product that they're going to create? Like, what does risk taking look like? Is it hiring another person and hiring someone without necessarily knowing you have the money to pay them for the full year, but you need this person because you see an opportunity? I'm very safe. Like, I was having a conversation with a banker yesterday, and she says men business owners take on debt. Women business owners tend not to take on debt. And I'm like, I have no debt, and I'm proud that I have no debt. But are you saying that that's limiting me to growing my company? Because to me, debt is risk. And so I'm like, where am I not taking other risks that's holding me back and may put me into a spin mode? You know, where you're just like spinning your wheels, you're not growing. So what does, I guess the question then is, I kind of had to work through it.
No, I think it's great. What does risk look like, or what can risk look like as well?
And what kind of risks have they, what was the biggest risk that they took? Maybe one that paid off and one that didn't, but wasn't as bad as they thought. I'm so terrified that if I take risk, like I'm going to take a loan, I will hire this new person before I feel like I'm really ready to. Oh my God, what will happen? I will lose all my money. I'll go into debt and I'll have to close the business.
Right.
You know, this like catastrophic thinking. So I'm kind of curious to know, tell me about a story where you took on, you took a risk, and maybe it didn't go as well, but it wasn't as disastrous as we all played out to be in our minds. I'd love to hear that story.
I think that would be an amazing story.
Okay.
And I think there would be amazing lessons in all of it. Thank you so much. This has been so delightful. I feel like we could continue all day, but I'm sure you are very busy working your business, and looking forward to having more opportunities to connect, have conversation, and I hope you can be part of my community.
I love that.
I feel the energy has been fantastic.
And the same, I'd love it if you could be part of mine. Thank you for having me. It was a wonderful experience. I was really honored that you asked.
My absolute pleasure. Yeah, thank you so much. And again, I hope we get to do this again.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alberta Women Entrepreneurs is where women find the confidence, capital, and community to grow their business. Whether you're just starting or scaling up, AWE is here to support you every step of the way.